Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am so sorry, y'all. I overslept. Whoever invented the snooze button is a masochist. That's all I have to say about that. Good morning. My name is Debbie. Welcome to my channel. I am running so behind. I didn't have time to do my hair. I just pulled it up in a ponytail. No earrings. I at least have my lipstick on. I still feel blurry. Like when you get up in the morning and like your eyes haven't focused yet. I still feel blurry. I don't feel awake yet. I do have my coffee. I ate some fruit. I'm going to go eat something. Whoa. I got to back up. I'm not awake yet. I saw an inflatable Phil sounds like nightmare fuel. And I'm like, what are we talking about? Okay. Obviously, Judy has said something and I missed it. Ronnie said in her memoir that Spector insisted she have an inflatable dummy of himself as passenger in the car she was driving alone. Oh my God. Oh my God. You are right, Jill. An inflatable Phil does sound like nightmare fuel. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's crazy. The man is insane. Hey, Terry. Oh my God. Why? Why? Was inflatable Phil gonna jump out of the car and protect her if something happened? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Oh my goodness. Okay, we are on part 75. We're gonna listen to Dr. Warner Spitz for as long as I can stand him. Like I said at the end of yesterday, I'm getting so sick. Okay, Terry. Have a good day. We will miss you though, but your work is very important. I am so sick of expert witnesses that think that they are just all that in a bag of chips. You can tell I grew up in the 80s, can't you? I don't know what else to say about that. They're just now the younger ones aren't there yet. And I hope they don't ever get there. Like Dr. Wolf from Karen Reed, bless his heart, Mr. Dimples. If he ever gets like these old guys, it would break my heart. However, I won't live long enough to see that happen, but it would break my heart because he's such a sweetie. But guys like this, DeMaio, Mr. Eyebrows. Oh, did y'all catch he was mentioned in the Karen Reed trial the other day? I think I said something at the time, but other things overshadowed it. So somebody pooped in the house. Did somebody poop in the house? Oh, he was just instructed not to. Let's see how good that works. He pooped in the house yesterday. Yeah, I cleaned it up because he would have stepped in it because he wasn't very, he didn't put it in a good place that time. He usually puts it out of the way, but no, it was right in the entryway to the bathroom. I almost stepped in it. Oh. And I know you would have stepped in it, so I cleaned it up the way. So you didn't see it. Okay. I have to go. Bye. I love you. Yeah, it's coming down. You better hurry up and run to the truck. You're going to melt. Okay, Terry. It's raining. It's storming. It's thundering. So, Belle, Daddy's going to work. He's going to work, baby. She's trying to following him. She's trying to follow him. He's going to work, sweetheart. Come over here by mommy. She's going to get scared and... Okay, I'm going to try to do a little bit of multitasking. So, because I need to make the portal and put these videos into playlists because you guys are waiting on me. So if it starts to affect StreamYard, I'll quit. So if it gets glitchy, I'll just stop. Well, maybe. I got too many windows open. Hang on. Jeez.
Yesterday, when we left off, Doctor, in the afternoon, we were discussing the facts of this particular case. Show or suggest. I didn't want to interrupt. We were discussing the facts that show or suggest that Philip Spector was in arm's length of Lana Clarkson when she was killed. And I want to follow up on that discussion a little bit and visit with you a little bit this morning about some of those facts that you may or may not have considered and have a discussion about that. Yesterday, during direct examination, Doctor, you and Mr. Plourde had a discussion about the position of Lana Clarkson's legs. And you've seen several photographs depicting her as she was found and photographed in the location. You recall those photographs?
Yes.
And basically, if I can take some leave with my description, suffice it to say she was seated basically in an upright position, leaning back against the chair. When she was photographed, her head was to the left. She was sort of inclined at an angle, if you will, and her legs were outstretched in front of her. Is that a reasonable description?
Yes.
Let's take a look at... let's take a look at what's been previously marked as People's 64. You may or may not have seen this particular exhibit, but I'm going to focus your attention, if you will, on photograph A. And I think Sudi can highlight that photograph for us. Okay, this is photograph A of People's 64. You see the position of Ms. Clarkson's legs?
Yes.
All right, basically that's a pretty consistent position with all the photographs. In other words, there's no suggestion in any of the photographs that her legs were in any other position in the photographic evidence that you saw, correct?
I understand.
Yesterday when you...
Sorry. I understand.
Yesterday when you were talking to Mr. Plourde about the position of the legs, I believe I heard you say that in your opinion, her legs may not have been in that position when she was actually fatally wounded. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, what do you base that? I want you to explain to us what you base that on and what you're talking about. What position do you believe her legs were in when she was fatally shot?
Well, first of all, I'm totally aware of situations where people who had been sitting when they died stretched out.
Sure.
And there is a very strong suggestion that she may have done the same thing because her dress is totally ruffled up and bunched as she came down sliding the chair on the chair. and the legs were presumably under her at the time the shot was fired, because there was no gunpowder residue, no blood that I'm aware of on the parts that were not accessible as this spurt came out, which would imply that the legs were bent under her, at least to that degree.
All right, okay, but the other explanation, I suppose, Doctor, would be that the that far. That would be another reasonable interpretation of those facts, correct?
I would still be left with the explanation that would be required for the skirt being pushed up the way it is.
Okay.
The picture almost indicates that.
All right, so you're indicating that based on the fact that there was no blood found on the legs, you believe the legs must have been tucked under her at the time of the gunshot.
Objection, that misstates the evidence.
I'm not sure that it does, and he can correct Mr. Jackson if he believes that's incorrect. Overruled.
Is that accurate?
I say that the legs were likely tucked under.
Okay, pardon me for a second, I've got a frog in my throat. And the other reason that I think you gave us just now, that you believe she moved after she was shot, is because the skirt was bunched up around the upper part of the thighs, correct?
Because of that, and because I know often do that.
Okay.
That they move the head from one side to the other, they move their arms, and they move their lower extremities.
And yesterday you talked about you being aware of someone who moved, and I think you were describing to Mr. Plourde something that you had seen one time where someone was fatally wounded, shot to death. I think that was a self-inflicted wound, and the head moved back and forth, and the arm may have moved a little bit, correct?
Well, a little bit more than that. That is an example that I have here with me.
All I'm asking about is that particular example.
He hasn't quite finished his answer, Mr. Jackson.
That is an example that I have here on a disc. Unquestionably a case that occurred and was photographed by the police during an interrogation. But I've seen it in other situations too.
Okay.
So it's not a one-time observation. I've got several such examples in my office.
Doctor, all I'm asking about is the one example that you gave yesterday with Mr. Plourde. The one that you were talking about was, the one that you were describing was videotaped in a police station where a person pulled out a gun and shot himself, correct?
That is one such example.
Okay, where did that person shoot himself?
In the head, in the right temple.
You're pointing to the right temple when you said it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, he didn't shoot himself in the back of the neck, for instance, and transect his spine in that case. That was
No, he did not shoot himself there.
Okay.
He shot himself in the right temple and was brain dead instantaneously.
And there was no suggestion that his spine was transected?
No, his spine was not involved.
Okay. But Lana Clarkson's spine was involved in this case?
Yeah, but she was just brain dead.
Two different wounds?
She had a shot in the mouth and was brain dead, and he had a shot in the temple and he was brain dead.
And her spine was transected and his was not? Down the spinal cord, electrical impulses, if there were any from her, could not move from the brain to the body.
Whereas that is correct, but irrelevant, because the transmission of impulses down the spine has nothing to do with this.
All right. Now, let's get back to the legs. You indicated that you believed, based on the blood evidence at the scene, that her legs may have been tucked under her, correct?
Something like resembling what you're doing.
Okay, I don't know if the jurors can see me, and I'm using myself as an example, and I'll describe for the record what I'm doing. I'm seated normally in a chair with my feet together, basically my knees bent at a 90-degree angle, not necessarily tucked under me, but not out in front of me either. Basically, my shins are going straight down, perpendicular to the floor. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes.
All right. Is this the position that you believe that Ms. Clarkson was likely in when she was shot?
Or even further in.
Okay, so even tucked under her more, like I'm tucking now. So maybe I've got a 10-degree angle going beneath my body or so, correct?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, and it's your opinion, your medical opinion, that if she was in this position here, that I'm in right now, after she was shot, that her legs shot out from in front of her and she scooted down the chair, correct?
Yes.
All right. Would you agree with me, doctor, that one reasonable explanation for her skirt being hiked up, or bunched up, as you put it, is if in fact she had a gun shoved in her face, she might be retreating from that gun and move down the chair. Is that reasonable in your opinion?
You mean that she voluntarily did that?
That she was voluntarily retreating from a gun being put in her face and may very well have slid down the chair as she retreated backward. Is that reasonable in your medical opinion?
If you saw the evidence that I have, you wouldn't ask me that question.
Okay, but I haven't seen that, so I am asking you that question,
Yes.
doctor, and I'd like you to answer it, please.
The likelihood of that is remote. I don't say it doesn't exist. I don't say it's impossible. I'm saying it's remote.
All right.
In view of the fact that these kind of movements.
See, that's what I'm talking about. If you had seen the evidence that I've seen, you wouldn't ask me that question. Well, he did, so answer the question. Jeez, Mr. Smarty Pants.
Are not that infrequent at all.
All right, let's talk about something else. We've talked about the bunched up skirt. Are you aware of how long that skirt was when Lana Clarkson was standing?
No, but it was longer than what you see on the picture.
Well, clearly, it was longer than that. But do you know how long it was? How far down the thighs it came?
No, I don't. But as I say, it's bunched up.
Okay.
So it's, the way I reckon, at least down to half her thigh.
Okay. So you believe that the skirt may have come to mid-thigh area?
Or longer.
Or longer. All right. If I told you that the evidence suggested, well, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a video of Lana Clarkson at the House of Blues walking around in that slip dress?
No, I've not.
Okay. You were not provided that by the defense?
No.
All right. Assume for purposes of my question that in fact your first assumption was correct, that that skirt came to mid-thigh, not down to the knees, all right, when she was standing. You agree with me? Assume that particular fact for purposes of my question. If she in fact sat down with a mid-thigh skirt, that skirt would come up even a little further. Just based on, I mean, basic fashion physics, I guess it did be called, correct? I just coined a new phrase.
Well, I'm not very much into fashion.
You and me both, Doc. But you would agree with me that the skirt couldn't be any longer. It's going to be a little shorter when she sits down.
Sure.
I mean, just like my pant legs are a little shorter when I sit down.
Sure.
All right. And you'll also agree with me that she's a long-legged gal, correct?
That's another thing that I really don't know.
You're aware that she's
She presents them for everybody to see. There is a picture of Lana Clarkson.
okay, and she was some 6 feet tall, close to 6 feet
She's
tall.
5'11", yeah.
All right. As she sat, it wouldn't really matter where her calves and her feet were. From mid-thigh, at least mid-thigh down to her knees, that would be exposed at all times, correct?
Yes.
All right. You're also aware that there was no blood spatter, none, zero, found on her thighs or her knees, correct?
There was no GSR found on her thighs.
GSR is what he said.
There was no GSR or blood spatter
Oh,
found
blood.
on her thighs or knees.
Yes.
You're also aware that James Pex, one of the defense experts, opined that if in fact no blood spatter was found beneath the hem of the skirt, that reasonably is the distance that the back spatter went. He's the back spatter expert, or one of them, and he opined that in fact the back spatter stopped at a boundary about the hemline of her skirt, as you see it on the photograph. You're aware of that?
States the evidence.
There were other factors. That was one possibility. So you can redirect if you want. You can go through the other possibilities.
Thank you.
All right.
Are you aware that he testified generally to that fact?
No.
That doesn't state the evidence. That wasn't.
Wait, it was the way you're stating it. It's though it was his only. There were other. He discussed various possibilities.
I'll restate it. I'll
Okay.
restate it. I think I can clear it up. Are you aware that Jim Pex indicated that no back spatter being beneath the hemline of the skirt was suggestive of the outer boundary of the back spatter being basically the hem of the skirt?
I cannot say that I remember that.
Okay. Are you aware that that Stuart James suggested that if in fact no back spatter was found on the legs and knees, that would indicate that the back spatter stopped at this scene, that the back spatter stopped at about the hemline where the back spatter was found and was found no further? You're aware that he testified?
I know I was not.
You didn't review either one of their testimonies?
Well, I reviewed parts of it, but
Okay.
not every instance.
Sure, that's fine, that's fine. Assume for my question that, in fact, the spatter stopped at the hemline of her dress and nothing was found on her hose, on her legs, on her knees, nothing was found on her shins or on her shoes.
I understand.
Given that fact, it wouldn't matter where her shins and shoes were for purposes of the blood if, in fact, her knees and legs, the top of her thighs, were still exposed to the gunshot. Correct? In other words, that wouldn't be a determining factor in your mind because the thighs would be exposed.
Well, it's not a determining factor, other than that it's another link in the chain of thoughts as to her slipping down on the seat with her skirt bunched up. I don't go for this idea that this indicates that she protected herself and that this was a defensive position that she held on the chair. It's just, in view of what else goes on here, it's not a very plausible position.
So you believe, if I can move you for a second, you believe that it is unreasonable, in your medical opinion, unreasonable to infer from the facts that if I held a firearm in my hand in a threatening manner against the person seated in the chair, that the natural reaction might be to back up and retreat from that deadly weapon. That is an unreasonable assumption in your medical opinion.
In view of the fact that I personally think that you would use your arms, you would have this is a peaceful position she is in.
Well, she's dead, doctor. Peaceful now. I'm talking about what happened in the 2 minutes before she ended up in that position.
She's, like they say, at peace, but that's funeral director talk. I'm talking about she is not in a commotional type position here. If somebody holds a gun in my face, I wouldn't be sitting there waiting for the gun to go off.
And of course, you're not Lana Clarkson, and you weren't in the house of a stranger, and you didn't, in fact, have a gun held in your face. So what you would do is sort of irrelevant. We're looking at the facts of this case.
I'm talking about what's reasonable.
If you're in a chair, if you're sitting in a chair and someone is right in front of you, straddling your thighs with a gun right here, where are you going to go? They've got a loaded gun in your face. Where are you going to go? Back. You've got no place else to go. I mean, you could push them away, but they've got a gun right. That's not a peaceful position. And it's instinct to back away. And he's probably going towards her, right? So yeah, you're gonna, well, my chair reclines, but yeah, you're gonna, I never thought about that before, but that makes perfect sense.
And I think that I'm a reasonable person. I think you are a reasonable person. I think most people are reasonable people. And they would probably all react in a similar fashion. So I find a body slumped over a chair like this in a position that is, to you, as you now ask me, seems to be suggestive of a certain mechanism of infliction of this gunshot wound. No, I disagree there, especially since I'm aware that there are lots of other situations where the same identical situation occurs and there's no gun involved.
As a matter of fact, you're aware of at least 4 other almost identical situations to this, where Philip Spector has held a gun on an unarmed woman, and she didn't. In any of those situations, she didn't fight back. She did what he said she should do. Either stay in the chair, go upstairs, sit down, don't move, or whatever. You're aware of all of those, correct?
Overruled.
You're aware of those situations, yes?
I'm aware of a history of several situations where a gun was involved with other people, but I'm not aware in what position exactly they were as compared to this position or to any other position.
All right. So you weren't provided all of the details about Mr. Spector's history with women and guns.
No, I don't say that.
Okay.
I say I'm not aware in what position they were. I'm aware that there were occurrences years before that involved Mr. Spector and guns. But to say to you that I'm aware of their position at the time, whether they were sitting, standing, lying, whatever position they may have had within those confines of sitting, standing, or whatever it was, I do not know.
They went back to stairs and
Getting back to the back spatter, if in fact the back spatter was limited, assume for purposes of my question, if the back spatter, Dr. Spitz, was limited to a distance about the hem of the dress, and if back spatter experts indicated that the defendant had high velocity, or what they called impact spatter, on his jacket, that would place the jacket, whoever was wearing the jacket, that would place the jacket within the boundary of about the distance of the hem of her skirt, correct?
What up, Jerry? Assume smack's not in evidence.
It's one possible. There were others, so it's going to have to be asked in a different fashion. You can ask the question, but you have to do it in a different fashion.
Are you aware that other defense experts have indicated that the spatter on the defendant's jacket could reasonably be interpreted as being impact spatter?
Objection vague as to what spatter.
Overruled.
I'm aware of that.
Are you aware that Stuart James said that there may be a couple of spots of satellite spatter on the jacket, but that would not account for all the spatter on the jacket? Are you aware of that?
Objection vague as to location.
Overruled.
Mr. James, that were satellite or could be satellite.
Okay. Are you aware?
The testimony, the way I understood it of Mr. James, was that it could be any one of 3 possibilities that might have resulted in the staining of the jacket.
You're aware that he indicated that if it wasn't expirated blood, that the rest of the blood that wasn't satellite spatter, and he accounted for a couple of drops that could be satellite spatter in his mind, that he accounted for the rest of it as impact spatter. You're aware of that, correct?
Again, overruled.
I feel awkward about second guessing or interpreting what Mr. James said.
I'm not asking, no, doctor, you misunderstand my question. I'm absolutely not asking you to interpret what Mr. James said. By your own admission, you're not a backspatter expert. He is. I'm just asking you if you're aware of what his testimony was. If you're not, it's okay.
Well, what I already said that I understood his testimony to be is any one of, or maybe all of those three possibilities of expired blood, impact blood, and satellite staining. And you talked to me yesterday in the hallway, and in the absence of anybody, except I think Mr. Pruitt was there and Mr. Dixon was there, and you asked me about that, and I told you my opinion at that time.
Right, and we'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to talk to you about that in just a second. All I'm asking about now is what you're aware of insofar as other defense experts have stated concerning the jacket. Let me ask it this way. You're aware that Stuart James indicated that if it was satellite spatter on the jacket, he had to be within a couple of inches of Lana Clarkson. Yes?
Yes.
You're aware that he indicated that he would leave it to pathologists to determine, but he had no indication that this was expirated blood. And pathology is not his expertise, spatter is not your expertise, so we'll leave it at that. You're aware that he's basically
Well, you've got one sitting right here.
You're misunderstanding my question. I'm asking you some foundational questions, doctor. You're aware that he said that he was unaware of any expirated blood, and he was not accounting for the backspatter on the jacket as being expirated blood, to his knowledge.
Objection, that misstates it, sir.
What's the misstatement?
He said he couldn't tell whether there was some breathing event. The pathologist would have to tell you that. He definitely said it could be expirated if that breathing event occurred. Or
I understand that, but I don't think that makes the question inappropriate.
Well,
You can raise it and redirect. The objection's overruled. You may proceed.
You're aware that he indicated he had no knowledge he was anybody that had said that this was expirated blood, correct?
I don't know what he said here,
All right.
but I know what he said to me.
Okay. Well, I'm not worried about what he said to you. I'm worried about what the testimony is before the jury.
Well, I did not hear it.
All right. You're aware that he indicated that, and as a matter of fact, before you said that there could be expirated blood, that doesn't show up anywhere in this case, correct?
I don't know if it shows up or not.
And Dr. DeMaio is a pathologist, and he didn't say this was expirated blood, correct?
Well, Mr. Jackson, please take notice that I speak for Werner Spitz. I don't speak
I
for
completely
Dr.
understand.
DeMaio or for Mr. James or for Mr. anybody.
All I'm asking, doctor, is whether or not you're the first one to say that, to your knowledge.
I didn't know that, but that's interesting to know.
And you've referenced Dr. Pena's reports, and you're aware that he didn't say that there was expirated blood.
objection, that misstates it.
Dr. Pena
I'll withdraw.
did not say it was expirated blood, but Dr. Pena describes unequivocally inhalation, taking in blood from this area, obviously, because that's the only part that bleeds, into the bottom part of the respiratory system, which is all the way down in the lung, deep as far as it'll go in the lung. The only thing that would prevent it from going further is because that's the end. The lung doesn't go any further. That cannot occur as from dropping down there by gravity or any other way.
We'll talk about that in just a second. All I'm asking you, once again, I'm trying to stay on focus here. All I'm asking you is, in his report, Dr. Pena did not say that there could be expirated blood, correct? Is that yes or no?
He implies it.
Okay, and in his testimony, he didn't imply anything. He specifically said she could not expirate blood. You remember that, right?
No, he did not. He did not. He said that she could have taken some shallow breath.
All right.
That's what he said.
Right. And she could not breathe out. correct?
But if you take shallow breath, you need to breathe out in order to breathe in. There's not an indeterminable amount of, or unlimited amount of space in the lung. If you breathe out, you have to breathe. If you breathe in, you have to breathe out.
Dr. Spitz, I promise you I'm not arguing with you. We're going to be here a long time.
I'm trying to tell you what is possible and what is not possible.
All right, if you could just answer my question,
I
Dr.
would do
Spitz,
that.
we can cut this a lot shorter. All
I
right?
would like that.
Well, it's actually another $5,000 for you, isn't it, today?
No, don't worry about that.
I'll bet you're not worried about
Mr.
it.
Jackson, I've got plenty of money. The only thing I don't have is time.
Yeah, well said, and well said. We're getting a little bit off the track, and I'm going to try to get us back on the track, all right? I was asking you about Mr. James and Mr. Pex. Both of them indicated that, let's say that if it was expirated blood, okay, that had to have occurred within inches of Lana Clarkson.
That misstates it.
He's asking the
I'm asking the
That's
question.
correct. He's not stating anybody else's answer, so the objection is overruled.
Is that correct?
Would you do me a favor and say it again?
Sure. If there was expirated blood's only going to go a few inches.
Expirated blood will go depending on how much force there's behind it.
Right, but you already indicated that there would be no force behind it because it would be passive.
Just a second. I believe he had not finished his answer. You need to slow down a little, Mr. Jackson. Had you finished your answer, Doctor? About
But I
expirated
don't
blood?
remember what I was going to say.
You were indicating about how far expirated blood would go.
It depends on, just imagine yourself coughing, terminally expelling the last gasp or one of the last gasps, and lips being, because there's no tone, lips falling on, looks like it's closed, and the sound would be something like, well, how far would that go? 2 feet, 3 feet? It's, when we talk about a spatter that occurs from this kind of a thing, from this terminal thing, it depends with what intensity that terminal cough would transpire. And it's not only a few inches, obviously.
I have no idea where that ended up, so I'm gonna try to get us back on focus
Anybody
again.
who has ever
Doctor, I don't have a question for you right now.
Sorry.
Please, allow me to ask some questions and see if we can get us back on track, and we'll get through this a lot faster, okay? If, in fact, this was impact spatter, and you know what impact spatter means?
Yeah.
Okay? And if the impact spatter ended up on Phil Spector's jacket, that impact spatter, if it was the same pattern, basically the same pattern and distribution as what appeared on the skirt down to the hemline, that would place the jacket approximately where, in your opinion?
This occurs from this impact spatter would have occurred from a shot in the mouth with a containment of the initial collection of material, blood, spinal fluid, tissue, gunpowder, smoke, all those things in a confined place. And right after, not instantaneously after, but within a millisecond after, this would all come out. And that can travel in a shot like that in the mouth for, as far as I'm concerned, 6 feet or more.
All right. So your opinion, and again, you're not a backspatter expert.
That's right.
You're simply saying, in your opinion, that even if there was no blood found anywhere beyond about the hem of her skirt, not be on the chair, not be on the arm of the chair, not on her legs, not on her knees, not on her shoes, not on the carpet in front of her, not on the carpet surrounding the chair. That jacket could still be 6 feet away based on the single gunshot. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, because...
Excuse me, overruled, it is a form of a hypothetical. You may answer the question.
That's what I'm saying, because
I think he was answering the question.
if the velocity is of the spray is adequate, you wouldn't have the spray close by. You would have more spray further over.
So in your opinion, the spray that came out of her mouth, Mr. Spector was so unlucky that he happened to be standing in the one spot 6 feet away where every single impact spatter hit him, and nothing hit the ground in front of him, hit anything behind him, hit the carpet, nothing. All of it ended up on his jacket. That's what you're saying.
I'm going to check as soon as the fact I don't have it. The fact's not going to just the record.
When you
The
say
objection is
all,
overruled. You may answer.
when you say all, it sounds like you have a bucket full of the stuff. No, that's, you have all, he's got all of, 18 spots? And that includes some which are certainly not impact spatter, but transfers, like down here, on where he wiped something and some of the blood went down on his sleeve on both sides. Imagine, for the sake of discussion, that you take a container and you spray it on the wall. You spray it away from you. Are you going to have fluid next to you? Probably not. The fluid is going to go over there. And the farther you go, the less, the larger the diameter, but the less individual stains are going to hit the target. And on a white jacket, you'd probably find all or most of them. Mr. Spector had, I think, 18, 17, or 20 such spots on the left side of the left panel of his jacket.
So in your opinion, and you agree that according to all the experts, all of them, including the defense experts, you agree that Ms. Clarkson had spatter on her slip dress, correct? All right. So what you're saying, what you're telling this jury, is that when the gunshot went off, Dr. Spitz, spatter came out of her mouth, traveled onto her slip dress, then jumped and skipped her thighs and knees, skipped her legs and shoes, jumped over the carpet, traveled in a tight formation, and landed just on the left panel of his jacket. That's what your testimony is.
The way you're describing it is probably correct. Well, let me suggest to you, though, that the amount of spray that she sustained is really quite small. So it comes out of here, the nose would possibly generate some spray as well, the mouth would generate spray, and a few of those particles would come on her. Maybe they didn't come on the knee because the knee was not available to be spattered on. The knee was pointing down, or maybe was down, on a downward slope, and did not get it. I cannot talk about what there isn't.
Explain to me what you mean.
It's the way you were sitting, the way you were sitting earlier, and the way I was going to show it yesterday. I wasn't allowed to do it, but you obviously did it. If I'm with my knees like this, If you looked at that picture, at that video that I wanted to show, I would have glad if you saw it in your own place. You wouldn't ask me that because it's quite obvious.
You really don't know what I would ask you, Doc. Just explain your answer. Well, how could the knees be in such a position that they couldn't get spat on? Show
Well,
us that.
they probably could, but they're not really accessible.
I see.
They're not really that accessible.
How
If
are
they
they not accessible?
Well, if I'm spattering this way,
Okay.
there might be a few sprays that come down, but they don't go on my knees.
I see. So the blood spatter came out.
Do I have to have a spray on my knees? No, I don't have
I
to.
see. So in your opinion, in your expert medical opinion, as a forensic pathologist, the back spatter came down at such an angle that it covered her skirt and then decided it's going to stop at the hem and move its course to a trajectory 6 feet away and not find anything else in the path, but then find Philip Spector, and not just all over Philip Spector, but just on the left panel of his jacket and spray on the left panel of his jacket. That's what you're saying.
Overruled.
No, you sound like those people who objected to or who brought up the magic bullet theory in President Kennedy, that the bullet had to go zigzag. It
You know
was
what, Doctor,
shown.
I'm going to stop you at this point and object that it's not responsive.
Sustained.
Let's stay away from Kennedy, okay? We got enough problems in this trial. Let's stay away from that. Answer my question. Is that what you're suggesting to this jury happened with that back spatter?
I'm suggesting to this jury that the spatter is on the jacket, is not a mist pattern, is not a aerosol type pattern, and is not from it's not a high velocity type pattern. These are larger droplets that hit the left panel because Mr. Spector, with that jacket on, happened to have been standing several feet away, and that this occurred from her breathing.
You're aware that Stuart James, one of the defense paid experts in this case, completely disagrees. And one of the top blood spatter experts around, so he says, completely disagrees and says, in fact, everything that was on his jacket, with the exception of the transfers, the stuff that was on his jacket, he spat.
This, I don't know. I still, even with that, the jury 3 instruction being confusing, I still don't understand. And remember, y'all, I came into this not knowing anything about this case. I just wanted to watch AJ. I knew nothing. I didn't even know. I knew he had killed someone. That's all I knew. I didn't know any of the specifics. I didn't know about the exes that he supposedly threatened with a gun. I knew nothing. And if I was on this jury, I have no idea how this became a hung jury. It boggles my mind. Even with that weird instruction that they hammered out and fixed, how did this become a hung jury? I just don't understand. I don't care how depressed she was. You don't go to a man's house that you, first off, she didn't know him. He was in a position to further her career, no matter how depressed she was about her career. And what was she doing? Going through his drawers to find a gun? That's just, I don't understand. Maybe we'll figure something out before they go to deliberate why in the world they would. I just don't understand. This seems like a slam dunk to me. What do you guys think?
I'm
Just a
very
second.
surprised.
Doctor, just a second.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think it's one of the possibilities he discussed, and I think it should be asked in that fashion, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Sure. You're aware that Stuart James indicated that the pattern on the jacket was mostly millimeter and sub-millimeter sized particles, consistent with high velocity spatter, correct? You're aware of that?
I did not discuss that with him. So
All right, but of course
I did
you
not
would
discuss
defer.
the particulate matter with him. I discussed with him whether he thought the spatter was consistent with a spread of particles.
Doctor, I'm asking you what you're aware of as far as his testimony.
Excuse me, this is hearsay that he's bringing in. It's not responsive to the question. Your objection is overruled. If you want to restate your question, you may.
All I'm asking you, it's very simple. All I'm asking you is if you're aware that that was his testimony in this courtroom. I'm not asking you about discussions outside the courthouse.
No, I'm not aware of that.
All right. You, of course, would defer, as a medical expert, you would defer to those in the other sciences, forensic sciences, that have more experience in that field. For instance, a backspatter expert. You would defer to his expertise, correct?
You know, at this point, I don't know what I'm deferring and what I'm not deferring. Let me tell you that I would defer anything to anybody if I didn't see it myself.
All right,
If
fair
I
enough.
saw it myself, and not just once, but many times, when I come to scenes, I have a body lying there or sitting there or whatever position the body may be in, and there's a blood spatter because there was a shooting.
How many of those scenes, Dr. Spitz, have you seen blood spatter come out in a spray, go to a certain distance, then skip everything else and find one particular target? How many times have you seen that?
Sir, this is spray on the move. This isn't spray
That's
that...
objection, non-responsive. How many?
Same.
I'm sorry. How many times have you seen what I just described?
I've seen not spray that deliberately, as you put it, maybe you didn't use the word deliberately, but you put a thinking mechanism into the spray. That doesn't, obviously that doesn't apply. But I have seen many times where a spray would go a certain way and there's something on the way that it didn't hit.
As a matter of fact, may I, Your Honor?
Yes.
You indicated that when, and you used this example, Dr. Spitz, and I want to start foundationally with this. You said if you spray something in a wall, the further it gets away from you, the larger diameter that pattern's going to have, correct?
Yes.
You're aware that the pattern that appeared on Phil Spector's jacket was basically limited to the left panel of his jacket from about mid-breast to about the hem of the jacket,
That's correct.
All right. A relatively small and narrow
No, I think it's a large pattern.
well, I mean, as opposed to a pattern that would fill this wall. The relatively narrow pattern on his jacket, correct?
Yes.
All right. Isn't the more reasonable explanation, Doctor, not with forgetting all the hopping over and jumping over stuff and finding a target, isn't the more reasonable explanation simply that Philip Spector's jacket was closer in proximity to the backspatter or the blood-letting event when that gunshot was fired? Isn't that more reasonable?
No, it's not more reasonable
Why is
because you would have not 18 little dots on him.
How many would you have?
Objection, didn't let me finish.
He hadn't finished his question.
Sorry.
You would have a much different density on there. Not a. You saw the picture yesterday that was shown where the back spray was illustrated. I know it's an illustration, but the density of such spray is comparable. You have a large amount of destroyed tissue. You have a large amount of blood. You have blood under arterial blood pressure that is suddenly opened and available to be sprayed out. That occurs instantaneously because you make a hole in a high pressure vessel and that spurts out like a fireman's hose.
Like a fireman's hose.
Yes, like a
That's-
fireman's hose.
That's what your testimony
Let
is.
me suggest to you.
Doctor, all I'm asking you, is that your testimony like a fireman's
Well-
hose? Yes or no?
It sprays out very intensely.
Didn't you testify just yesterday under direct examination with Mr. Plord that in fact there wasn't much backspatter in this case? Didn't you say that yesterday?
I don't remember saying such
All
a thing.
right. Isn't it true that the actual wound was at the back of a human being's throat, and that throat is covered by cheeks and gums and mucosa and teeth, and there had, by necessity, there had to be an object in the only orifice, which is the mouth. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I don't understand what the question is.
Wouldn't you agree that, in fact, the back spatter in this case would generally be limited?
The back spatter would be that which occurs from a wound by a 38 caliber missile into an area that is highly vascularized. That means it's got a lot of blood vessels. It's got a lot of arterial blood supply, which is under arterial pressure, which is the type of pressure that yields, if you cut an artery, that easily will go on to a 12-foot ceiling. I've seen it happen.
Did she, doctor?
I'm sorry?
She didn't cut an artery, did she?
No, she didn't?
No, there was no missile that cut an artery in Lana Clarkson, was there?
Well, that's new to me.
So that's sort of irrelevant, isn't it?
No, that's not irrelevant at all, because there is no, you mean it didn't cut the aorta, or it didn't cut the carotid artery, but
Correct.
it cut the arteries.
Correct. It didn't cut the carotid artery that you're talking about spraying to the ceiling. I mean,
Excuse me,
that's
sir, but every artery has the same pressure. The smaller arteries don't have any less pressure than the big arteries.
So doctor, where's the blood on the ceiling at this crime scene?
I'm not suggesting that there is, because the face didn't point to the ceiling.
Well, where's the blood across the carpet on the crime scene? If that's going out like a garden hose or like a fireman's hose, as you said, where's all the blood all over the crime scene with this fire hose of blood just spraying everything? Where is that?
That is the blood spatter.
And you saw her slip dress, did you not?
I did not see any material evidence.
You never went to the crime scene?
Arterial spray and blood spatter. I mean, technically, yeah, arterial spray is blood spatter, but arterial spray is gushing, and blood spatter, well, I don't know. I'm a nurse. I'm not a forensic expert, but there's a difference.
Did not see all the information that I have based on that I saw on the pictures of the jacket and the other clothes. I did not see the actual clothes.
Don't you think, as a professional, as an expert in this case, as a forensic scientist, don't you think that it would be important, before you sit up here in front of this jury and opine about blood being sprayed by fire hoses and blood jumping over kneecaps and thighs, before you did that, don't you think it would be important and competent of you to at least look at the evidence in the case, like the slip dress? Wouldn't that be important?
Well, you know, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know that it is necessary. For that, I have photographs. I have the ability to talk to the other experts, and I have the knowledge to interpret those. And certainly, I never used the terminology that you used, that the blood jumped over anything. It's not my kind of terminology, and the blood certainly didn't do that.
All right, doctor, let's change gears just a second. You mentioned the expirated blood.
Yes.
You mentioned it yesterday, and you've mentioned it a couple of times today. What is a neuropathologist?
Neuropathology or neuropathologist?
Either one. Just explain what it is, what the study is. And
Well, a neuropathologist is a pathologist who specialized in the pathology of the brain.
all right. Do you know Dr. John Andrews?
No.
You're not aware that he is, in fact, a neuropathologist?
No.
Do you know Dr. Hideo Itabashi?
No.
Sure. Hideo, Hideo. Itabashi, I believe it's Itabashi. Are you aware that he's a neuropathologist?
No.
Are you aware that Dr. Pena in his testimony indicated that he consulted, not only did he make his own findings, but he also consulted with two independent neuropathologists, Dr. John Andrews and Dr. Hideo Itabashi, both of whom indicated that Lana Clarkson was immediately deceased upon the gunshot and the transection of the spine, and that after that, there would be no volitional movement. And I think you would agree with that, correct?
Yes.
Compound question. Misstates the evidence of hearsay.
Overruled, overruled, overruled.
And they also indicated upon consultation, according to Dr. Pena's testimony and his consultation with them, that in fact, Lana Clarkson could not expirate blood. Are you aware of that?
Hearsay.
Overruled. It's one, he has criticized some of Dr. Pena's conclusions. This is the basis of Dr. Pena's conclusions. It also goes to his opinion. The objections are overruled.
I'm sorry, the answer was, I just asked you if you were aware of what they indicated, what Dr. Pena's testimony was in his consultation.
Would you tell me what it was?
That she could not, in fact, expirate blood.
Well,
Are you aware or are you not aware that that's his testimony, doctor? That's all I'm asking.
I'm aware, but I'd like to explain it.
You'd like to explain the fact that you're aware? You
No,
can
not
explain
the
it in
fact
just a
that,
second.
yes, that I'm aware, yes.
Okay, you can explain that in just a second. I'll ask you another question. I'm sure you'll get a chance to explain it, or Mr. Plourde can ask you the question. You based your opinion that Lana Clarkson may have expirated blood. We may be using the wrong word here. I want to make sure we start with the right definitions, doctor. I think that's always important. When you say that she expirated blood, you're not talking about blowing or coughing or achoo, sneezing, correct? That's not what you're talking about.
For the sake of the reporter, Mr. Jackson made certain noises to go along with the phrases that he used. I'll let her use her interpretation. I'm not sure about that. All right.
Doctor, you're not suggesting those things, coughing, sneezing, volitionally blowing out air. You're not suggesting that.
I'm suggesting nothing volitional.
Okay.
But that does not mean that there is no post-mortem, considering that the person is brain dead on or at the instant of the firing.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is release of air that is in the lung outward.
That would be a passive release, correct?
Every expiration is passive. This is really not an expiration. This is a... Have you ever seen a dog dying?
Well, no, I haven't.
Well, that's what you see when you see an animal die. I have never seen a person die, but I can't imagine that in a person it's any different.
Okay.
When life ceases, the air that's inside is expelled.
Passively.
Well, the expiration, even during life, is always passive.
Well,
Yes, we can, if we want to, we can inhale willingly and...
Oh my God. I have seen something that this blowhard expert has not seen. Oh my God. Doesn't always happen at the time of death, y'all. Which is why it can be crazy scary. Because sometimes it can happen. Ouch, hot. Sometimes it can happen way later. There are times when it doesn't happen until you move the body. And that can be scary as crap. Because gases can get trapped. Because, we're bodies. We always have gas in there somewhere. So, yes, after death, you can burp, you can fart, you can exhale, all that can happen. And it can happen way later. So let's stop there. let's stop there. I didn't mean to stop it there, but this is as good a place as any. But yes, it does happen. It does not mean that they're still alive. It's just trapped gases in the body. And the timestamp is 52:29. So, okay. Thank you guys for coming out to Phil Spector. If you're going to join us for Karen Reed, this will portal you there. If not, I'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, be kind to people, love your family. Jesus loves you, and so do I. And I will see you in a few minutes. Bye, guys.